convoy, folks. Vaccinated and unvaccinated people, Canadian and American patriots, standing together in solidarity for freedom. The power of the people is greater than the people in power. Trust me when I say that the world is watching. You are truly inspiring. No, you are true heroes. For the rest of time, you will be remembered as such. And don't let anyone tell you any different. This day will be one for the history books, and I am honored to be a part of it. Witnessing firsthand the 10,000s of supporters that crossed almost every overpass for hours on end in horrible weather conditions, waving their flags and cheering us on. The almost $8 million that have been donated to our cause. The food and lodging that has been offered to you by caring people, most of which have suffered greatly for the past, while they themselves have been suffering. Still, they are jumping at the chance to show their support in any way possible. Hearing the thousands of kids calling through the public CB channels to show their love and support for the truckers. To the Americans that are standing with us today, thank you also. And if you ever decide to pull this convoy over to your president next, you know that we are your Canadian brothers and sisters, and we would be honored to return the favor. Truck Trudeau and let's go Brandon. All these things have brought tears to my eyes on more than one occasion in the last few days. During the last 2 years, I can honestly say that I was starting to become depressed and jaded due to knowing that our civil liberties were being taken from us and watching as it seemed nobody cared enough to stand up to it. I've never been more proud of Canada. I've never been more proud to say that my grandfather and my mother are truckers themselves. Words cannot express the gratitude I hold in my heart for what you are doing for us. We will forever be grateful. We have been told that we are anti-science. Yet the very meaning of science is to present an hypothesis and have the data to prove your theory. However, it is true in the field of science that when new data is presented that disproves your theory, then it is deemed invalid. That is not what is happening here today. Any opposition to your views, and you demonize good people who are risking their very livelihood to speak out. This is not science. That's called propaganda and tyranny. Justin Trudeau labels us as extremists when it is him who brings in actual terrorists from ISIS into our country and pays them $10 million. It is him who is directly linked to the funding the Muslim Brotherhood, which is a known terrorist organization. If that isn't a slap in our veterans' face who have died at the hands of those same terrorists, then I don't know what is. Trudeau has stated that we are a fringe minority who do not share Canadian values and should not be tolerated. Well, Trudeau, it is you who is the fringe minority who does not share Canadian values and should not be tolerated as a Prime Minister one moment longer. Justin Trudeau says we don't follow the science, but what he really means is we don't follow his commands. And what does he do in response to us being here in defiance of his unlawful mandates? He runs and hides. Again, the pitiful coward of the cottage doesn't have an ounce of integrity in him. And I truly believe he is the most hated Prime Minister in Canadian history. Interesting fun fact, the Fuck Trudeau flag is trending as the #1 sold flag in Canada on Amazon right now. It would seem Justin Trudeau is pretty popular, but not in the way he hoped. On May 16, 2020, I did a speech at Queen's Park directed at the Toronto Police. I reminded them that they took an oath. I even read that oath back to them verbatim to be sure that they would not be confused on what that oath meant. I told them that the government is blatantly trampling our constitutional rights. I told them that forced or coerced medical intervention, which includes vaccination, violates every article of the Nuremberg Code and is considered a war crime under international law. I simply asked the police to do their job and arrest those responsible for these crimes against us. I warned that if our pleas for help and our protest fell on deaf ears, then there will be a day that we will put down the megaphones and be on Parliament Hill with hockey sticks and pitchforks. As mad as we are, and as bad as we are hurting, and as close as we are to that point, that day is not today. We do not need a show of force to win this fight. All we need is united non-compliance. We don't need to fight at all. It is vital that this remains a peaceful gathering. All we need to do is continue to drive all these trucks around the Parliament building every hour of every day, blasting your horns until the government learns to respect our rights and freedoms. And when someone screams at you to move, you say, "Truck you, make me." And when the shelves in the supermarket become even more bare, we will be there to remind the people that the shelves were getting empty way before the Freedom Convoy happened, and that it wasn't the truckers who started this, it was the government. We will remind people that it was the truckers were the ones that stood up for us. But we have to be cautious. We have to be careful. The government is just itching for something bad to happen that they can blame us for. To the people here today, if you see anything suspicious happening, please film everything possible. Just imagine what the outcome of the Kyle Rittenhouse trial would have been had there not been multiple people filming from multiple angles. The news agencies have lost all credibility, and we are all the media now. People have already lost so much, not just their jobs, but their loved ones also. But there is still so much at stake. Our children's future is at stake, and I will not be silent. If we allow this to continue, our children will be condemned to a life of servitude. If we don't have the freedom to decide what can and cannot go into our bodies, what freedoms do we have? We are well aware that governments around the world have long employed dirty tactics, such as agent provocateurs within our ranks, to cause harm and destruction of property, to have an excuse to arrest us and brand us as extremists, and have the mainstream propaganda machine paint us in a negative way. We have to be mindful of these types of controlled opposition. They did it during the G20 protest in Toronto, and they will do it again today if they have the opportunity to. It was the protesters that caught and restrained the culprits responsible for burning cop cars at the G20 summit, and it was discovered that some of them were undercover police. We know that they have lied on the news about the numbers and the purpose of this convoy, which is to end all the mandates that are unlawful. We know that they have disabled every highway traffic camera possible so that the people would not see how strong and united we really are. We know the government at a few different provincial crossings did everything possible to disrupt our convoy. We already have evidence that Trudeau and our government is directly funding Antifa communist thugs to the tune of millions of dollars to dox, harass, threaten, and assault people just for thinking differently than they do. The same well-funded organization that burned, looted, and murdered people in American cities for months on end starting in 2020. The same types of people that were on the CB channels populated by thousands of children spouting vile, racist, and despicable comments, when it was the truckers themselves who have gone out of their way to establishing a strict code of conduct and a zero-tolerance policy, even towards swear words. Honestly, to any Antifa here today, I don't know how you sleep at night. You are just horrible people. Anyone who is advocating for mandatory vaccination is advocating for war crimes, plain and simple. Now, the government is coming after our children to commit those same war crimes. And I guess that they figured that we have been so compliant until now and didn't think that there would be a pushback. Well, now we push back. Now we stand up. Now this stops. This is the turning point. And if the government keeps committing these crimes against us, I would like to remind them that we have had the right and ability to overthrow any tyrannical government since the days of the Magna Carta. And if Justin Trudeau doesn't think that will ever happen here, and he really wants to test our resolve, well then he should just truck around and find out.